What's that part of you that you just want to hide? That part that when you think about it, it just feels icky. You know, that part of you that you hope that nobody ever discovers and that you work really hard at trying to hide it, hoping that nobody ever sees it. And it's that part that pops up and says, oh my God, if they only knew this about me, then nobody would ever really want to be around me and especially wouldn't want to do business with me. You know that part? Well, what I want to help you do is to love the most unlovable part of you and to understand why this is important when building a business. What does loving the most unlovable part of you have to do with building a business? My name is Felicia, Searcy, your Dream Life Activator. It is my joy to be your partner in believing. And in this Facebook Live, in this amazing group of women entrepreneurs, hey Helen, good to see you, talking about why is it important to love that most unlovable part of you? And what in the world does that have to do with building a business? And stick around because I have an amazing invitation for you that I would love to extend to you to keep this conversation going. So bring to mind that part of you right now, the part that when you think about it, you just kind of cringe. You know, there's a part of me that I was aware of for a very long time that I loved my community. I loved, my friends and the people in my life. And yet when there would be a part of me that when I heard that something good happened for them, especially when it was something that I really wanted, that I would be envious and jealous, and there would be a part of me that would start going through my head around, why it was an exception or what happened that maybe they didn't really deserve it, and why I deserved it more than they did. And I would watch myself do this and just work really hard to try to rein it in and make sure that I didn't do anything to indicate that I was feeling that way. And it was just one of those parts of me that is just, it was just icky. I just felt icky in the presence of it, but I didn't know how to stop it. And I wanted to be one of those kind of people that celebrated other people's good. And I wanted to be somebody who could see that when something good happened for somebody else, it meant that it was possible for me. But where I went was that there wasn't enough. That if something good happened for somebody else, that meant that there was less for me. And that somehow I wasn't good enough, that I didn't do it right. Now, in order, that they got it and I didn't. Now, I understand where it came from. I understand the dynamic of growing up that caused that kind of wiring in me to react that way. But even understanding, even having that awareness, that insight, didn't make me feel any better when it popped up. And I would try to affirm it away, and I would try to just, override it, and none of that worked. I would try to shame myself. That certainly didn't work. And I tell you, the thing that really made the difference for me was that I learned how to just love and cherish that part of me. That I learned how to love the most unlovable part of me into healing. Now, why is this important? And what in the heck am I talking about this in a group of amazing women entrepreneurs? And by the way, that, every once in a blue moon, it will rear its ugly head, but that is just not my MO today. And I did it by learning to just have so much love and compassion for that most unlovable, what I labeled as the most unlovable part of me. So why is this important? Well, here's the thing. That part of you, that most unlovable part of you, the part that you want to hide, the part that you hope that nobody sees, that you try to push away or overcompensate for it, the part that you overcompensate for, that's the part that will push your good away. Because that's the part that will tell you why you don't deserve good things. That part, that most unlovable part of you, the part that you have shame around, the part that you're embarrassed around, the part that you Just hope goes away, right? The hope that nobody notices. That's the part that's actually driving your consent, driving how much good you will allow into your life. And when there's a part of you that you're trying to hide, all of you gets hidden. Oops, sorry about that. All of you has less access to your good. All of you has less access to your creativity. This is the part of you that will determine. It's like the governor on your good. Big semi trucks back in the 70s. They had when we were going through, those of you who were around may remember, I was a kid back then and into my teenagers. So do the math, I'm 60. But we were regulating, that's when 55 an hour speed limits came into being because of a fuel shortage. And so we were regulating how much emissions we were putting into the air and how much fuel people were using. And so with semi trucks, they put this thing called a governor on, that once you hit a certain speed, it's kind of like your cruise control. Once you hit a certain speed, the truck could not go over the certain speed. Hey, Helen, good to see you. Glad you're still here. So it would, you get up to a certain speed and the governor on the semi truck would slow the speed down. It would keep the truck from going over the speed limit. That part of you, that most unlovable part of you, is the governor for your good. It will dictate how much good you will allow in your life. And hey, Amy, hope you're having a great day as well. Talking about why it is important to love the most unlovable part of you. That will dictate how much good you will allow yourself to have. It will determine how much success you will allow yourself to have. Hey, Grace, really good to see you. So we have to learn how to love that most unlovable part of us. And there's so much energy that you put into trying to hide that part of you. I know that I put so much energy, I shared earlier, that part of me that just really struggled when people in my circle, good things happened to them, that somehow I felt like it was a reflection on me or something was being withheld from me, or that somehow, I was losing, that if somebody else got good, then somehow I was missing out, I was losing. And I worked really hard to try to hide that part of me, to try to fix that part of me, that I would overcompensate. But what it did, so it becomes a regulator for how much good you'll allow in your life. And then the other thing that it does is that it sucks your creative energy, because you're working really hard to try to override that part, try to squelch that part, or try to hide that part. And there's shame. When we have shame around any part of us, it's like there's a whole major, beautiful part of us that we don't have access to. You don't have access to your confidence. You don't have access to your energy. You don't have access to your creativity. And when you don't have access to those things, you cannot build a business. You can't build a business unless you have full access to your creativity, to your boldness, to your confidence, to your worthiness. You have to have access to your worthiness in order to be willing to take the risks and take the action and do the asks that are required for your business to be able to allow success. So in order for me to transform that part of me, in order to be able to build my dream, which has been my business, because, here's the real dream, right? Whatever your business is, the real dream is to serve people. That you truly want to serve people. That's the real dream. So in order to be able to do that, you have to have access to your creativity. You have to have access to your worthiness. You have to have access to your courage in order to be willing to take a risk. And if I'm busy trying to override or hide or squelch down a part of us that unlovable part of us that we're ashamed of, you don't have access to all of that. So how do you do it? How do you embrace the most unlovable part of you? How do you love and cherish? That's it, Robin, have access to your worthiness. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, How do you love the most unlovable part of you? Well, first and foremost, so here's the process that I work through and that I now lead, hundreds of people directly as clients and thousands of people around the world that I get to have the honor of working with, building out a life that they love. Here's what you do. So I've got my list here. So let me make sure that I get the steps here. First thing you want to do is that you want to go back and you want to remember the essence of who you are. Now, if you follow me in my lives at all, then you know that this is what I come back to over and over and over and over again. That fundamentally who you are is this amazing being created in the very image and energy of love itself. Just because we may show up in unskilled ways at times, and there is a part of us that is not exactly the way that we want it to be, does not change. And so Helen, I'm talking to you right now, and I want you to feel my arms around you right now as I'm looking you in the eye, and I'm standing with you as a partner in believing, every single one of you, knowing and acknowledging and affirming and recognizing the essence of who you are as this amazing light being created in the very energy and lightness of love itself. We are created from the very substance of love itself. I want you to write that one down. I am created from the very substance of love itself. Here's another one that I want you to write down. I am love incarnated. You are love incarnated. I want you to write that down, and I want you to just keep working with it. Now, we're not going to stop there. But when that unworthiness part of you, that part that says, "Ugh, God, I just wish this part would go away." Hey, Marta, this is, I'm speaking to you. I am love incarnated. That this is what you want to work with, and just keep breathing in. You want to literally breathe it into that part of you that you feel ashamed of and that you want to run from and try to hide and override and overcompensate and hope it goes away and pretend nobody else sees it. That you just want to keep breathing in that you are created from the very substance of love itself. I am love incarnated. All right, now, you don't want to stop there. As you are in that energy, then the next step, so that's number one, remember who you are as this amazing being created from the very substance and energy of love itself. Let me take a drink of water here. I'm working up a thirst. Here's the second piece of this. The second piece is that you really want to honor the part of you that developed that behavior pattern or that belief from a place of survival. So I grew up in a household, very dark, lots of violence, lots of abuse, two very ill parents. Both my parents dealt with mental illness. My mother dealt with addiction. So it was just dark. It was just one of those really dark existence. And there was a lot of comparison, and sometimes it became life-threatening. That if I didn't measure up in a way that, one of my parents in particularly wanted me to measure up, that there would be some truly life-threatening repercussions. Now, not everybody has to have that kind of extreme experience to develop a survival mechanism that is no longer serving you. But whatever your story is, whatever the mechanism that you developed, came from a place of survival. And so for me, that if somebody did better or got more than I did, then it usually meant that I got less, that I didn't get something, whether it was safety or approval or, even basic needs met. So that got wired into me. And even after doing the forgiveness work, and even after recognizing where it came from, that part of me that, gets resentful when somebody else gets good and I don't, or something works for them and it doesn't work for me, that all of that work didn't change that knee-jerk reaction in me, that when I saw somebody in my circle, something happened for them, that knee-jerk reaction of, well, why doesn't it happen for me? I got really clear. Not only did I understand where it came from, but I honored the little girl who developed that behavior pattern as a way of survival. Whatever it is that shows up for you, that you cringe and you want to back away from, that you believe is the most unlovable part of you. You know, another thing that I used to do, because of the amount of darkness in my world and the amount of pain in my world, and anger and violence, feeling sad was not a safe thing to do. Having anger was not a safe thing to do. So what I used to do as a kid, my mother used to make Christmas cookies, Christmas cookie dough, and she would freeze it. She'd put it in the freezer. She'd start in September. In order to be able to just try to manage the pain and the anger, I would literally go down into the basement as a kid and I would gnaw on frozen cookie dough in order to deaden the emotional pain. And for years, I felt ashamed of that part of me, that I was just like, oh my God, I hope nobody ever discovers that I did that. And, you know, I used food for a long time into my adulthood to try to manage the pain, and I would be ashamed of it. And what I've learned is that that amazing kid, that amazing you, some part of you was smart enough to figure out that behavior pattern in the moment and utilize it in order to survive. I did that in order to survive. I competed with other people in my world in order to survive. That got wired into me. Now that I'm in a world where that sort of thing is not happening anymore, I don't need it any longer. But being ashamed of that part of me doesn't make it go away. It's honoring that part of you and saying, my God, how brave you were and how smart you were to develop that way of surviving in order to be able to make it here. And so instead of shaming that part of you, wrap that part of you up in love. And just thank you for coming up with that in order to survive, whatever it was that you had to survive. And really honor that part of you. That's number 2. Really honor the part of you that came up with a methodology that you don't need today, but you needed it then. And how did you know you needed it then? Because it showed up, because you thought of it, because you developed it. Now, number 3, you want to start having a conversation with that part of you, because that part of you still doesn't feel safe. That part of you still doesn't feel like it's okay for her to lay it down. I had to know that it was okay, that it was safe for me to lay down the part that felt like I had to manage my emotions, that it was safe for me to express my emotions. I had to lay down the part of me that got envious or felt, deprived somehow, why are good things happening for them? I had to know that it was okay for me to lay that part of me down, that I no longer needed it. So you want to tap back into that first step, remembering who you are as this amazing being created in the very energy of love. And then you want to tap deeper into this life force energy that created you, this life force energy that wove you into existence, and that is the foundation of your being. That the more you're able to ground in that life force energy, the safer you feel, the more solid you feel, the more grounded you feel to be able to let go of those behavior patterns that you no longer need. So, number 1, remember who you are as this amazing being created in the very energy of love itself. Number 2, acknowledge the part of you that developed this behavior pattern that is no longer serving you, but served you at one point, that it was a survival mechanism. Number 3, ground in the reality of the foundation upon which you stand, of this life force energy that's here, moving through you and supporting you and grounding you. Ground in that to know that you're safe. Number 4, learn to recognize what that voice and that feeling feels like in your body when it gets triggered. that the more you're able to catch it before it goes into a full-blown expression, the more then you're able to work with it. And so you want to, like I noticed that I get this tightness in my chest, my brain starts freezing, and I recognize that contraction in my energy and the thought pattern of, why them and not me? And to be able to recognize that more quickly, or that part of me that wants to reach for something to eat when I don't want to deal with, whatever the emotions, the human experience that's going on. So you want to learn how to recognize at a more nuanced level what that feels like in your body. And then you stop and you wrap your arms around that part of you. And you reassure that part of you that you're safe and you're good and you're grounded in what's real and true. And then ask that part of you, what is it that you need right now? What do you need in order to know that we're safe and we're good and that you're loved and you're cherished? And you just pour light into that part of you. And then listen. Listen for what that part needs. It may be reassurance. It may be that you just need to go have some fun. Oftentimes when I want to, when that part of me, rears up, starts talking about why good things happen for other people and maybe they're not happening for me, which is such an illusion, right? That, it's when I'm working hard and I haven't put space in my life for play and adventure and curiosity. And so it may be something as simple as paying attention to that part of you and asking, what do you need? And that part of you says, wow, I just want to go play. Let's just go for a walk. Let's just go lay in the grass and look at the clouds. Because this is a very young part of you that in that moment believes that this is the only way that she can get her needs met. And so rather than shying away from this part of you and hoping that nobody sees this part of you and feeling ashamed of this part of you, you want to wrap your arms around that part of you and you want to just love her and adore her and let her know how cherished she is as you ground in your awareness of how loved and adored and cherished you are. And then you're able to hear, what is it that you need in this moment? What is it that I can give you to help you know that you're loved and you're cherished and you're safe? So we can replace the behavior. And that's the fifth step, that ask for what she needs, that part of you needs in that moment, and give it to her, and then ask, so how would I like to show up instead? Even if not 100% of you is on board just yet, ask, how would I love to show up instead? Who would I love to be right now? If the woman who's cherishing herself, the woman who loves every single part of me, that's gaining access again to my worthiness, that's gaining access to my creativity, that's accessing my boldness, my confidence, my power. How does that woman love this part that in the past that I have deemed unlovable? And what does this woman do in this moment? And so you're wrapping your arms around that part of you and you're loving her and you're cherishing her. Because remember, in order to get anywhere, you have to bring all of you along. You cannot have a part of you. You cannot abandon any of you. You have to bring all of you along in order for any of you to come forward. And so wrapping your arms around her, asking her, what is it that you need? Honoring her for coming up with that survival skill at a time when it felt like that was the only thing that she could do. And then asking, the woman who loves herself so completely, the woman who cherishes all these parts of herself, the part that you may be ashamed of, that you get frustrated with, all of it. The woman who loves all of it. How does that woman show up right now? What does that woman do? And this is a process. You rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. So I hope this has served you. If you want more of this, I'm going to encourage you, join my Facebook group, Ultimate Life Now, where we continue this conversation in the Facebook group. And I do two free things on a monthly basis. One of them is a members only mastermind group. The next one is coming up on March 9th from 11 to 12 Pacific time. I live in Pacific time zone. So we get on Zoom. It's not on Facebook. We get on Zoom. Small group of highly dedicated people, deeply committed to their dreams, where we dig in. We dig into the kinds of things that you hear me on these lives, and you hook to good. Helen, join the Facebook group. Helen would love to have you a part of it, where we can dig into this more deeply. Come to my free mastermind on March 9th, where we really dig deep into it. Go to Ultimate Life Now as a Facebook group and join. We're going to ask that you share your email with us so we can send you notices, and that you agree to the terms and conditions of the group. All right, so quick in a nutshell. Remember who you are. It's this amazing being created from the very substance of love of itself. You are love incarnated. Recognize that you develop parts of yourself from a place of survival, that it was the best that you can do, and honor that part of you that came up with it. Ground in the reality of the foundation upon which you stand, which is this life force energy that so loves you that it created you. Then pay attention to how it shows up, this thought process in your body, so you can catch it and ask it what it needs. And then, who do you want to be? Who do you want to show up as instead? As you bring all of you along and love all of you. And then join me in my Facebook group, Ultimate Life Now, where we dig deeper into this conversation. And join me for my free members-only mastermind, March 9th, 11 to 12. The only thing I ask is that you make a charitable contribution to a cause of your choice. All right, last thing, just remember how amazing you are. I deeply love and appreciate you, and I am so, I admire your commitment to you and your dream, your business, and I hope to see you in the Facebook group. My name is Felicia Searcy, your Dream Life Activator. Your dream is my passion. God bless. Mwah.